No DQ Galaxy, we are live with a recap of Monday Night Raw for November 20th, 2023. We have WWE Survivor Series coming up this Saturday night on Peacock and the WWE Network. We have a lot to discuss. This was the go-home edition of Raw heading into Survivor Series. Shout out to everybody watching this live. Matthew, Jerry, TJS, Gomer, Kyle. I appreciate your viewership and support and tuning in early too. Now, let's get to the show. We had footage shown from last week's Raw. Drew McIntyre shaking hands with Rhea Ripley. What was it all about? Shout out to Kyle, who's also in the chat room tonight. Thank you, Kyle, for tuning in. Steve-O, D. Martin 5th, Andrew, I appreciate it. Drew McIntyre was in the ring to kick us off. He said that he earned the right to talk and the people will listen. They will not do what they do to Dominic Mysterio to him. He said he's been the same person every time, the entire time. He said that he was never lying about anything that he's been saying. He said that Jey Uso never actually apologized to him for all the times that Jey screwed over McIntyre, including the Clash at the Castle premium live event. Drew McIntyre was upset because his whole family was waiting for that moment and Jey Uso took it away from him. He said that he was not joining Judgment Day, but rather he would merely be on Judgment Day's team at WarGames. And he said that Rhea Ripley gave him something nobody else could. Jey Uso in a steel cage. Jey Uso interrupted. He said he was ready to give Drew McIntyre a yeet down, and that Judgment Day arrived. The rest of Cody's team arrived. Cody Rhodes, Sami Zayn, and Seth freaking Rollins, the world champion. We had a face-off, which Adam Pearce was not happy about because it's not Survivor Series. He said that they needed to stay separate and not brawl, and Cody Rhodes' team was short a member. They needed to pick a fifth member by the end of the night, and also both teams needed to decide who would be the representatives for the advantage match in the main event. And this would need to be decided by 9 o'clock. This was a good segment to open up the show, and the whole 9 o'clock deal with some pretty serious football competition. WWE doing everything possible to try and pop a rating for this. I think it was a smart idea to do these teases throughout the show. Shout out to Dave Scheffler, who sent in a $2 super chat. Thank you for that, Dave. Says, Jey wasn't at Clash of the Castle. It was Solo Sikoa. Well, Jey Uso was interfering, but you're right. It was Solo who was the difference maker in that match. Drew McIntyre blames the bloodline, and he blames Jey for being the right-hand man of Roman Reigns for so long. So yes, there is that aspect of it, that it was actually Solo at Clash of the Castle, but Jey Uso was definitely getting involved in Drew McIntyre's business leading up to that. And, you know, they're doing the best they can with this storyline here. So, yeah, we basically have to forget that it was actually Solo and not Jey. Backstage, Damian Priest was chatting up with Rhea Ripley. He was upset because as the leader of Judgment Day, he should be known, or he should be informed about everything, and nobody told him about this deal with Drew McIntyre. And Rhea Ripley basically said it was a deal that came together at the last minute, And Priest said he should be the one to represent his team for the advantage match. But Rhea Ripley said that they should wait for Drew and let everybody have a say in it. And TJS is right. I mean, Drew McIntyre's frustrated and he's going to blame all of the bloodline, including Jay. He doesn't like any of them. That's the bottom line. So TJS is right in that regard. We had our first match of the evening, which was Raquel versus Nia Jax. Now, I already saw this match in Saginaw, and it was mostly the same match. They did a few things a little bit different. Raquel was struggling, though, to pick up Nia Jax, which I thought her gimmick was that she was really strong. This kind of hurt her in a way because every time she tried to pick up Nia Jax, she was unsuccessful, and she kept making her come back and trying to build some momentum. And then Nia Jax would regain the upper hand. Nia Jax was going for the Annihilator, which is the bonsai drop, but Raquel grabbed her in the corner and tried to powerbomb her, but could not do it. And Nia Jax did get the win with the Annihilator. I mean, I'm not really invested in Nia Jax at this point. I know they gave her another shot. They brought her back, and I just really don't care that much about her at this point. So it was what it was. And we'll get Nia Jax versus Rhea Ripley at some point, I'm sure. We had Drew McIntyre showing up backstage for the segment with Judgment Day and talking with Damian Priest about who would represent their team in the advantage match. And McIntyre suggested himself, and Priest was very reluctant about this. And he eventually agreed that McIntyre could go out there and represent him, but said that McIntyre needs to go out there and show his worth. The plot thickens here. So they're teasing that the Judgment Day and McIntyre aren't exactly on the same page either. Usually we get the faces not getting along, but we got the heels here. Can they coexist? We got that storyline. We had a video package hyping up the women's war game match. And then we had another backstage segment with Cody Rhodes talking with his team. Jey Uso wanted the match naturally against Drew McIntyre. And they talked it over a little bit, and they did agree on Jey Uso to represent the team against Drew McIntyre in the main event. And then Sami Zayn was wondering about the fifth member. Who's going to be the fifth member? And Zayn said he did have an idea, and Cody did as well. He said he has an old friend that he could make a phone call to. So we had that little teaser, and then we had Becky Lynch versus Xia Li. A pretty good match here. Lyra Valkyria was at ringside. She's the NXT Women's Champion, and she's got a match with Xia Li coming up. So yeah, this was a good match back and forth here. And Xia Li almost beat Becky on a couple of occasions. Lots of near falls in this one. Xia Li was able to avoid the manhandle slam. She hit her spinning kick, but she made the mistake of sending Becky to the outside of the ring instead of trying to go for the pin. And the announcers really played up on this. They were on the outside of the ring, and they got back in the ring. They traded shots, and then Xia went for another kick, but this time she missed. Becky hit the manhandle slam and picked up the victory. So they made Xia Li look about as strong as possible to set up the NXT title match. You know, she did ultimately lose to Becky, which I figured she would, but they did give her a good showing here. And then afterwards, Damage Control showed up. They were about to ambush Becky Lynch, but guess what? Bianca, Charlotte, Shotzi, they were all there too. They just happened to all be there. They all decided to show up at the same time on Raw, a show that they're technically not part of, so whatever. And we had a big brawl with everybody fighting. Adam Pearce, of course, very upset, doesn't want people fighting, especially from the other show. And he had the security out there. So they did another angle here on Raw to set up the match. Building Nexus sent in a $2 super chat. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Says, Priest is the captain because he'll get blamed for the loss. Well, that's one theory right there. And I'm not talking about Austin theory, but that's one potential way that this could play out. And we'll talk more about this. I should go and give my cheap plug now. Survivor Series predictions, Tuesday night live at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, right here on the No DQ YouTube channel. And while I'm plugging things, Wednesday night, Dynamite, my 41st birthday. Hard to believe, but made it this far and not stopping yet. So tune in on Wednesday night, my birthday edition of the Dynamite recap. And then D. Martin 5th sent in a $5 super chat. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Says, even in defeat, Xia Li was actually still put over. Becky made Xia look great. Yeah, it was Xia Li's best showing on the main roster. And, you know, she doesn't need to win every match. Losing to Becky, there's no shame in that. As Michael Cole would say, she was very game. And it was a lengthy competitive match. And I think it was fine. I think Xia Li will be all right if they keep going with her. The question is now, what happens on NXT? Will she actually win the title? I mean, Lyra Valkyria just won it. So we'll see what happens with that, where they go with that storyline, that match. And Jerry sent in a $2 super chat, says, your shirt is straight fire. Yeah. Isn't it cold? It is cold. It is like 38 degrees here in Michigan. Winter is coming, as they say. And I sometimes do miss living on the West Coast. It definitely gets quite a bit cold here in the Midwest. And thank you for the t-shirt comment. Moving on here, we had a backstage segment with Ludwig Kaiser and Giovanni Vinci. And Kaiser told Vinci to stay backstage. This led to Johnny Gargano versus Ludwig Kaiser. Gargano still has that awful music. Actually, it might have been the DIY music, which is also not too good in my opinion. Pretty good match here with these guys. Back and forth, competitive. Gargano went for a dive. Kaiser caught him with a punch to the face, and then Kaiser took control for a while. And eventually Gargano was able to make a comeback, did the slingshot spear, finally hit his dive, and then they traded some near falls. But then Vinci showed up. Vinci going against what Kaiser requested, and Kaiser was distracted. Gargano took advantage and picked up the victory with the one final beat. At least it wasn't stupid babyface. In this case, Kaiser was distracted because Vinci blatantly defied him. Match was good for what it was, you know, pretty basic, but advanced this storyline with Imperium, which was the intention of it. Billy L sent in a $5 super chat. Thank you for that, Billy. I appreciate it. Says, stopped watching live in 2021 and 22 after being a lifelong fan. Do you think it's time to give WWE another shot? It seems hot right now. Well, you checked out maybe at the wrong time, because once Triple H took over creative from Vince, it definitely improved. And the Sami Zayn storyline, that was pretty hot. Cody Rhodes coming back. A lot of interesting things have happened in WWE. And yeah, I think it's the best it's been in years. Definitely the best since, I would say, dare I say, the Attitude Era. And the Attitude Era, like, it has its flaws, but I would say this is the strongest WWE has been probably since 2000. And I think overall the weekly shows are solid. They've improved, and the pay-per-views, like, I don't think they've had a bad pay-per-view this entire year. And you know, for most years throughout WWE's history, there were definitely some pay-per-views that were absolute stinkers. I would say it's a very strong product overall right now. Attitude Era Mark sent in a $2 super chat, says, when is The Rock coming back? I don't think he's coming back for WrestleMania, so your guess is as good as mine. But with the strikes over in Hollywood, The Rock is back to work. I don't think Roman Reigns versus The Rock is happening. I did like the Ruthless Aggression era, Ray, but it definitely had its flaws. There were some bad pay-per-views, some bad gimmicks, and we could talk about that for hours. Maybe another video where we can talk about the ups and downs of the Ruthless Aggression era. Moving on here, we had a bunch of the women's tag teams arguing footage. I guess this was footage from earlier in the day. They were all talking to Adam Pearce wanting a tag team match, so Pearce just threw him out there for a fatal four-way match. And we also had Zoey Stark cutting a promo on Rhea Ripley. Zoey Stark gets a championship opportunity this Saturday at Survivor Series. We had our fatal four-way women's tag team match. Ivy Nile and Maxine Dupree versus Candice LeRae and Indy Hartwell versus Tegan Nox and Natalya versus Katana and Kaden, what they call a top contender match. The champs, Chelsea Green and Piper Niven, were out there on commentary. Crowd was not into this at first, but I will give the ladies credit. They worked hard, and it was a pretty solid match, and they got the crowd into it. I will say this too, Grand Rapids, Michigan, where this show was, they were a good crowd. They were into a lot of the show, and even this match where they seemed bored at first, but when the ladies were doing a good job with the match, the crowd started to pick up, and they did get into it. And everybody got to shine in this one. Maxine was jumping off the second rope to the outside onto everybody, and she did the caterpillar. She was ultimately the one that got pinned. It was Tegan Nox that pinned Maxine, and even Carter and Chance got to do some of their double team acrobatics during this match. It was a good match. It was solid. And now Tegan and Natalya will challenge Chelsea Green and Piper Niven. It's a step in the right direction, but they gotta keep focusing on building up these teams and giving the tag division some credibility, because it's still lacking. There's definitely still work to be done. Got a few super chats here. Psycho Jet Black sent in a $2 super chat, says, what was the last WWE Premium Live event with awful wrestling? Well, the thing is, I feel like the pay-per-views have gotten really strong the last couple years, and throughout the 2010s, I think they were mostly very good. You had some questionable booking decisions for sure. The last pay-per-views where I think the wrestling was actually bad was probably mid 2000s, like 2005, 2006, 2007, when you had Mike Knox and Snitsky and Luther Reigns. Like, those guys were just awful, and they had no business being on these major shows. And you had Great Khali, Wrestling Kane, stuff like that. But once they got the Shield, Seth Rollins, Dean Ambrose, Roman Reigns, and they brought in some more indie guys. Once Triple H's NXT caught fire, and they had Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens, AJ Styles, 2015, 2016 is really when things started to pick up, and WWE's roster just got really strong. And the pay-per-views got better. And it was, whenever there was a bad show, it was mostly due to the writing, not due to the talent. So that's my answer to that question. And Rage of Wrestling, Walter Cruz sent in a $5 super chat. Thank you for that, Walter. Says, do you think Kaiser can beat Gunther for the title since they are teasing the breakup, or will this lead to a Giovanni versus Ludwig Kaiser? Then they get lost. That's a good question. I feel like this is leading to something, but here's the thing. We got WrestleMania coming up, and I think you have to go with Gunther versus Brock Lesnar. That's the match I think people really want to see. Like we got that tease at the Royal Rumble. I want to see Brock Lesnar versus Gunther at WrestleMania. That would be my pick. But long term, Kaiser and Gunther, I could see them slowly building that up, and maybe Bash at Berlin. That's next August. Like slowly build up to that. Like don't rush it. Take your time with it. And that could be a match. But then by that point, maybe Gunther is no longer IC champion and he goes for the main title. So they could potentially do it sooner and build up Gunther for a world title match. Caleb sent in a $2 super chat, says, have you seen Deadpool? I love the first movie. Non-wrestling question, and I have not seen it, so won't take too much time here. Didn't see it, so sorry, Caleb. Not really a comic book movie guy all that much. I've seen a couple of the Spider-Man movies, a couple of the Batman movies, but that's pretty much it. And the first Iron Man. Attitude Era Mark with a $5 super chat. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Says, I only watch the big 4 pay-per-views in AEW sometimes. I show love to you when I see you live, though. I just miss when wrestling was exciting every week. I mean, it is exciting to a degree, not at the level of the Attitude Era, in my opinion. And I don't think we'll ever be able to have that recreated. I think WWE has a pretty solid format, and sometimes they rely on it too much, and it gets a bit repetitive and boring. Same thing with AEW. They've kind of fallen into a pattern. But yeah, I think the WWE premium live events are always exciting, and AEW's pay-per-views are always great, in my opinion. So you don't have to watch 10 hours of wrestling every week. Like, you can watch the YouTube clips and pretty much know what's going on and watch the premium live events. But I think they're all worth watching pretty much. So thank you for that super chat again. I appreciate it. And now we'll get back to the Raw recap. We had the tag teams, New Day and all the rest of them, meeting up with Adam Pearce. And I guess next week there was going to be a tag team turmoil match. And also Gunther met up with Imperium. He was pissed off and he said maybe he put the wrong person in charge. Again, they're slowly teasing a split here with Imperium. We had Miz and Gunther in a face-to-face segment. Miz wanted to talk about the lack of respect from Gunther, and Gunther was like, he actually has zero respect for Miz. He said Miz is just an entertainer. Miz responded by saying he's proud of being an entertainer. He gets it done both inside and outside of the ring. And he brought up past IC champions like Randy Savage and Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart. He said he battled for 20 years so he could hold the titles that his heroes held, the IC title. And he said that those guys were remembered because they were not one-note robots like Gunther. And he will beat the respect out of Gunther at Survivor Series. Gunther said he sees through Miz. He said Miz is just a little weirdo who in high school idolized those heroes, but then they grew up to bully him because he does not belong in the sport of professional wrestling. Damn it. He didn't say that last part. That's just a Noah Foster edition. Miz, according to Gunther, only belongs behind the guardrail with all the other weirdos. And the crowd started chanting USA. which is quite amusing because I think WWE is trying to not portray Gunther as a stereotypical foreigner, yet the fans just naturally gravitate towards the USA chants. And Gunther said that he doesn't think Miz has been bullied enough. And he started shoving Miz. He dared Miz to do something about it. He pie-faced him. And like any kid that's been bullied in school, eventually you have enough and you have to fight back. And that's what Miz did. He attacked Gunther. Gunther did get the upper hand, but then Miz delivered a low blow. He did say he would do anything possible to win the title. And then he gave Gunther the skull-crushing finale and held up the Intercontinental Championship. Very good segment here. Both guys did a great job. And they really made Miz relatable, in my opinion. You know, most of us, maybe not everybody, but we've all been bullied, most likely to some degree, at one point in our lives. And you know what it's like when somebody keeps teasing you, and eventually you just gotta take a stand. I've definitely been in that position before. So yeah, I thought it was a very effective segment. I still don't believe Miz has a snowball's chance in hell of winning the title, but hey, they did about as good of a job as possible setting up this match. I will give them that. It's Psycho Jet Black sent in a $5 super chat. Thank you. I appreciate it. Says, one positive thing about Roman Reigns not always being there is that WWE is forced to use these other superstars and build them up to be credible main eventers. That's a very valid statement you made there, or opinion. I think it's a valid argument that with Roman Reigns being a part-timer, you know, they're giving him the Brock Lesnar treatment. And in that case, with Reigns gone, that gives other wrestlers a chance to step up and show that they could potentially be the next guy to be like Roman Reigns. So yeah, it's a good way to get other people in the spotlight and see what they can do. You don't need Roman Reigns on the show every week. I still argue that there should be more of a balance, that Roman should be there a little bit more. He doesn't need to be there every week, though, but more than what he's been doing, in my opinion. Next up, we had a couple of pre-taped promos from Ivar and Valhalla. They challenged Bronson Reed to a match, and Reed, in another video, accepted the challenge. He said that Ivar is not a true warrior. He has that witch lady with him, and he's just a cosplayer. And the match is on for next week. So they got a pretty loaded Raw. They got this tag team turmoil. We got this match, Bronson Reed versus Ivar, and of course the fallout from Survivor Series. Attitude Era Mark sent in a $2 super chat. Says, I heard somewhere WWE was going TV 14 for hour 3. I think that was a rumor last year that did not materialize, but you never know. Things could always change, but with WWE potentially moving away from USA Network, you know, something could change. The rating of the show can change. It's never going to be what it was before, so don't expect that, but it's always possible that the third hour could be a little bit more geared towards adults. Like maybe they won't censor certain chants like they do now, like holy shit or something like that. But I would not expect much more than that. I think that it would be slightly more adult oriented, but not much. We had Chad Gable versus Shinsuke Nakamura, which I thought was a really good match, as you would expect from these guys. Very competitive. Gable was mocking Nakamura and ended up suplexing Nakamura over the top rope, and Gable did a somersault dive off the apron and did a thank you. And then after the break, Nakamura took control, came off the middle rope with a diving knee, and then it was back and forth some more. Gable hit a diving headbutt off the top. Nakamura kicked out, and then the turnbuckle pad got exposed. And Gable hit the Chaos Theory. Nakamura kicked out, and then he pulled the straps down. Gable went for the moonsault, but Nakamura got his feet up. And then Nakamura went for the Kinshasa. Gable countered that, applied the ankle lock. Nakamura managed to escape, and Gable was sent towards the exposed turnbuckle, but did not connect with it. And the moment of hesitation led to Nakamura taking advantage and getting the pin. I actually did like the finish here because it was different. Like, nobody actually went into the turnbuckle, which typically happens in these scenarios. So yeah, it's unfortunate for Gable to take another L here, but you know, they're pushing Nakamura right now, and Gable is somebody they can rely on. You know, they're not gonna give him the big push, but they can rely on him to go out there and have great matches. And he's getting the TV time, and you know, he might get his moment. Don't rule out him potentially getting an Intercontinental title run at some point. I don't know if he'll be the one to beat Gunther, but maybe down the line, if Kaiser wins it, they could do Gable versus Kaiser or something like that. And by the way, they didn't really tease anything for Nakamura at Survivor Series. I know some people think, well, Nakamura is going to issue an open challenge and a certain Pepsi man is going to show up. Doesn't look like they're doing anything with that unless it's something that's spur of the moment. And for the record, I do not think that CM Punk is showing up at Survivor Series. I would be very surprised. Never rule it out, but I certainly would not go to Las Vegas and bet money on it happening. Backstage, we had things continuing to get heated between McIntyre and Damian Priest, and Rhea Ripley just told McIntyre to get the advantage, and McIntyre said he's not only going to do that, but he is going to take Jey Uso off the team at Survivor Series. We had a WarGames video to hype up the pay-per-view, and then we had Cody Rhodes, Seth Rollins, Sami Zayn, and Jey Uso. Rollins and Zayn had no luck, so I guess Sami Zayn made a phone call to Kevin Owens. Could not make it happen. Jeff, not really too much later than usual. I mean, this was a pretty noteworthy Raw, so we are going a little bit longer here than usual, but not too much. I would say like 5 minutes at most. Rhodes did reveal, though, that he has his guy. He has his fifth person, and he's in. He's all set to go. We had our main event segment, Jey Uso versus Drew McIntyre. WarGames advantage match, which, I mean, logic would tell you the heel wins. By the way, they're letting fans vote on the women's match who gets the advantage, which is a choice. That's interesting to me. I wonder why they're doing that. I mean, I think they know damn well the fans are going to vote for the faces to have the advantage. So they must just assume that, and that's part of whatever their booking plan is. It's interesting. Anyways, and I'm not really a fan. I mean, they have to do it every now and then. I'm not really a fan of the faces having the advantage unless they do some angle where somebody gets taken out of the equation. So anyways, Jey Uso versus Drew McIntyre. Good main event here. They were trading shots, and every time Jay got in a shot, the crowd would go yeet. And McIntyre dominated a good part of this match, tossed Jey Uso onto the announce table. And then after the break, Jay started to make a comeback. Jay countered the Claymore with a super kick, but McIntyre kicked out. And then McIntyre was able to regain the upper hand, and he picked up the victory clean with the Future Shock DDT. Clean win for Drew McIntyre. And after the match was over, he was not done. He was going to say what he was vowing to do. He was going to take Jey Uso out of WarGames. He was going to put him through the table, but then Cody Rhodes and company came down with steel chairs. They fought off Judgment Day, cleared the ring, and then Cody Rhodes got on the mic and made the announcement. The fifth man is set, and he is somebody that Cody shares a legacy with. and the fans instantly got it. They popped big. Cody said that they're hearing voices in their head. And yeah, he did not say the name of this person, but the crowd chanted Randy, and Cody said, "The people are right." And the show went off the air without Randy Orton making an appearance. But they all but confirmed it's Randy Orton. And WWE tweeted with the snake emoji. So they're not outright saying it's Randy Orton, but yeah, they pretty much confirmed it, that it's Randy Orton. And we all know the reason for this, why this wasn't saved. Walter Cruz sent in a $2 super chat, says, "Do you prefer a surprise or the announcement they did?" I would have preferred it as an absolute surprise, but they couldn't do it under these circumstances. It's in Chicago. And with all the CM Punk rumors, if it was any other city in America, they could have saved this to the day of the show and had Randy Orton show up as a complete surprise. But because it's in Chicago, they had to give it away. But they did not have Randy Orton appear on camera, which I actually think is a smart idea. Save the return appearance for Survivor Series, but what they did here was let everybody know who it is, but still save something. We don't actually get to see Randy until the pay-per-view. So in that sense, I thought this was very well done. You accomplished everything you needed to. You got it out that it's Randy Orton and not CM Punk, and you're saving the actual appearance for the pay-per-view. So people have to tune in now to actually see Randy Orton show up and not give it away on Raw. So very, very well done here, I thought. Overall, this was a good go-home show. I thought it was an entertaining show, and they did a solid job of building up Survivor Series. Attitude Era Mark sent in a $2 super chat. Thank you for that. Says, "If you took over, how would you improve WWE today?" Well, I'd get rid of Def Rebel for one thing, and bring back CFOs, pay them whatever needs to be paid, or hire somebody else. I mean, Jim Johnston's pretty old, but if he's still willing to do it, bring him back. The music sucks. I mean, I actually think that's the worst thing about WWE, and maybe one of the few areas where WWE is worse now than pretty much any time in history. The theme music sucks. There's a few gems, but most of the Def Rebel tracks are awful, especially for the women's wrestlers. Like, almost none of them stand out. Nia Jax's new theme is awful. Most of them are not good at all. So that's number one. And I would try to make the shows a little bit more unpredictable and keep people guessing, but they got their formula. And there's a few other things, maybe small things here and there. I try to bring, again, some things are out of your control. Like if it was at all possible, I'd bring back more Ronaldo, but they probably want him back. But his situation isn't ideal for him to be doing wrestling every week and calling matches and traveling and all that stuff. But I mean, I'd love to have him back, and I'm sure Triple H has wanted him back. It's something that is probably out of his hands. So there are some things that they could improve on that, they might have control over, they might not have too much control over. But get rid of Def Rebel right there. Biggest issue I have with today's WWE. I give the show a B. It was a good show. Solid build-up for Survivor Series. Wrestling was good. Grand Rapids crowd was pretty energetic. And I enjoyed it. So thank you all for tuning in tonight. We got predictions coming up for Survivor Series. Plus, I will be recapping Dynamite on my birthday this coming Wednesday night. And then we got the SmackDown in Chicago on Friday. Psycho Jet Black sent in a $2 super chat. Says, "For the record, Coca-Cola is better than Pepsi." I think I would disagree with you. I mean, it's all personal taste. I like Coke Zero Sugar. I would put that above Diet Coke. Diet Coke, I think, is pretty weak. I like Coke Zero Sugar, and I like Diet Pepsi and Pepsi Zero Sugar. So it's just a matter of taste. I mean, I definitely like both, and I could tell the difference between Coke and Pepsi if you put them in front of me, but I like both drinks. Anyways, guys, take care. Have a great rest of your week. Stay tuned to the No DQ YouTube channel, and remember, say yeah to NoDQ.com. Pick up some merchandise over at NoDQ.com/merch, and I will see you all next time.